Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Preimesberger, editor of eWEEK. Thank you very much for joining us today for this latest segment of eWEEK eSpeaks. It's a series of of conversations with IT thought leaders from all different segments of the business. Our interviewee today is Chris Babel. Chris is the CEO, is that right?
Right.
Of TrustArc. You know, I usually get to talk to CEOs. I love it because CEOs can talk about all parts of a company and sometimes others can't. So Chris, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Chris.
Tell me a little bit about your background, about yourself, and then about TrustArc and what it does.
Sure. Been out here in the Bay Area for about 20 years. A lot of experience in the security space, last 10 years in the privacy space with TrustArc. And TrustArc as a business founded way back in 1997 as a nonprofit trustee, helped companies show that they were good at privacy. And you still see today that trustee seal on a whole bunch of sites that are good at privacy. But really, when I joined 10 years ago, we evolved and started to build kind of broad, scalable SaaS-based technology to help companies of any size, scale, region of the world think about how to solve the privacy issues and get privacy compliance and data governance right.
Data governance, I love that. In fact, that was one of the first things I really liked writing about years ago when I started writing about IT. Because you have to have truth. Okay, we all know when there's fake news, we have problems. Data governance and data quality talk about truth in data. And I always like to think, you know, I like to use the analogy, it's about like blood in your system. If your blood is impure, you're probably going to be sick. If your data is impure in your system, you're probably going to have a sick system. That's not exactly what data privacy is, but it's all about data governance and taking care of the data. Can you tell me about what TrustArc does? It's a software company now, whereas in the past it started off as something else. Can you explain that transition?
Sure. Well, we started out really as kind of experts in understanding the privacy laws at the time and thinking through how companies, became compliant with them and helped, back in the 90s and early 2000s, really do it in a manual way, make certain that their privacy practices were good, that they were living up to them, that they posted them appropriately on their website. But what's really evolved with the explosion at its core of data and data being an incredibly valuable asset to run your business, to grow your business, to think through market segments, think through what customers are responding to, thinking about use cases of your products, whatever it may be, and whatever B2C or B2B business you are, data has become so incredibly valuable. And we spent many, many years and continue to work on securing it and locking it down. But the privacy side helps you think about, how can I enable its usage in what we'll call a safe way? And in safe, I describe really with two main thrusts. One, a whole host of companies look at the privacy laws that are out there, maybe GDPR from 2018, the California Consumer Privacy Act and its update this year passed CPRA, whether it's the new Brazilian law, and they think, here's a law, it says to do 1 through 10, I'm going to go do 1 through 10, check. And then how do I manage that going forward? But really that is check the box compliance, which gets you into trouble in the very near term because you're solving for one problem. You're not solving comprehensively, programmatically across your business for all the challenges that may come up through a new law, through last year, the changes of COVID, where instead of focusing on the next law from the next state, we had to focus on how do I deal with employee data? How do I ask employees as they're coming back to my manufacturing facility, what have you done? How are you feeling? Can I ask these questions in this jurisdiction? Because I need to get my employees back to work to build the product I build. So we're really helping companies understand the privacy laws that affect them based on the use cases of their data, both today and in the future, helping companies maximize the value of their data to drive their business, but in a safe, compliant way, as well as in a way that kind of meets business and consumer expectations.
Okay, so TrustArc, let me get this straight, is protecting data privacy for both internal and external users. Is that correct?
Yeah, it doesn't matter if you're a partner in a B2B context of a company, a consumer working with a company, if they're a B2C company, whether you're an employee at a company. We help any company of whatever size or scale think about what are the laws that apply to them and how they can use their data to be compliant with those laws to go deal with employee issues, to deal with consumer issues, to deal with partner issues and how they use that data successfully.
Okay, so the data could be PII, it could be HR. What other kinds of data is protected?
Well, and that's where things start to get incredibly nuanced across different rules and regulations. So I think most people are now familiar that certainly if you're a Californian or you're a European, people may not know this if you live in Nevada, you can ask a business based on where you, the consumer, sit, like, what do you know about me, right? So it's called a data subject request sometimes. It's oftentimes called data access requests. So you can ask that of Facebook, you can ask that of anyone. What gets tricky very quickly is all these rules have different things you need to do as a business. The simple one I like to give is, if you get a request from a European, you've got 30 days to respond to them. Californian, 45 days. Nevada, 60 days. What you need to do, what you need to produce, the timeframes you have to produce it are all different. So as a business, if you think about maybe a parallel in data security, which most people are familiar with, there's 50 breach notification laws. Every state has one in the US, and everyone is slightly different. That's the same problem we're starting to have in privacy, is how do you manage this influx of regulations? And how, if there's an enforcement action, does that sometimes change the interpretation of the regulation that you need to manage? So on a business perspective, understanding what you need to do relative to what you're trying to do with your information is incredibly complex and only getting more difficult to manage.
Wow. Talk about moving targets. Now that's incredible. You got to keep track of everything. Do you have a couple of lawyers on your staff to help you out, or what?
Yeah, we're probably a bit more heavy on legal staff than most. One of the parallels I like to draw is, if you're in the security industry, you have your software that works, but you also have maybe a team of kind of white hat hackers that help you understand vulnerabilities and threats and help you manage the AI that's running to detect things, or the custom signatures or alarms that you're writing, rules that you're writing. We do the same thing, but we start, instead of with what's a vulnerability in a hacking attempt, we think about what's the law, what's the interpretation of that law, how do I write rules and logic into the system such that if I see a data flow inside a company, I can say, ooh, that's maybe crossing a new border that has a new restriction. And you might need to do something different about it. So the legal analysis is an incredibly important part of what we do. And most people don't know this, but we track at a global basis, and this is at the kind of federal level, except for US and Canada, where we do it at the state level. There are 1,000 laws that we track that have data privacy implications for what you can and can't do with your data. And so all that knowledge and expertise gets funneled through to how we see you using data through the platform, and cross matches those two and starts to give you prioritization of what you should be thinking about trying to do. 1,000 laws, and it's increasing every day.
That's incredible. That's practicality here. This is a cloud service, is it not?
Cloud service hosted, yep, externally with subscription kind of is the way you use the service, with a variety of different packages that best meet your needs.
Oh, that was my next question, is you have a menu of different features that your customers can pick and choose from?
Yep, you can start very small and focus on maybe a particular law, maybe a particular compliance feature that you think is important for something that you're doing. So very easy to start very small and extend and grow, either as you are growing as a business or as you are thinking about, I just want to focus on the California law first, and then the Brazilian law second, whatever meets your needs.
I can't imagine, a C-level executive or an HR executive not being interested in this feature, in this service. I mean, it's like having a whole staff of people working in your office.
Well, what's interesting to see is, with my 10 years in security, kind of late 90s through the about 2010 timeframe, I got to see security grow through that phase. Same sort of thing, first kind of threats, vulnerabilities. It's 1995 that Check Point offered really the first firewall out there. So, I got to see that explosive growth. And I oftentimes say privacy is like security just 15 to 20 years ago, in the sense that we're just over the last 3 to 5 years started to deploy technology, and it was to solve a need. I need a firewall. I need endpoint security. But it's now already at an accelerated rate vis-a-vis security, becoming a, how do I programmatically try to handle this? Because if I'm trying to get the one done at a time, candidly, you can never catch up. you're always playing whack-a-mole. And if you think about it comprehensively, which oftentimes means, yeah, it becomes a CEO question or a board member question about how are we dealing with these new laws, especially with some of the fines, some of them being very big.
Yeah.
Companies are thinking about it dramatically different than they were just 5 years ago.
Yeah. So Chris, we've got about a minute left. We have a special date coming up this week, this being January 28th, which is Data Privacy Day. What's the significance of having a day of the year for this subject?
Yeah, I think, the idea of how you handle data and this privacy issue has been around a very long time, just like we have. Some of the original privacy laws were back in 60s, 70s, thinking about this pre-internet. But it's great to have a day for us to kind of stop, especially in the crazy last year that we've all had globally, and think about something that's as important as, how am I handling all of this information? How am I both protecting it from a security perspective, but how am I enabling it from a business perspective to help me meet my goals? And doing right by both the business as well as business partners, as well as consumers, as well as employees, because we're really all in this together, trying to figure this out to meet everyone's corresponding needs, because data is just such a valuable asset for businesses, and getting it right comes with lots of benefits, and getting it wrong comes with many consequences. So it's a good day to step back from the day-to-day work of trying to get it done and think of maybe a bit more strategically of how all these pieces fit together.
Right. Well, data is the lingua franca of the 21st century. There's no question about it. You got to take care of it. You got to store it. You got to protect it. You got to access it correctly. And you have to make sure that certain assets of it stay private, and that's what you guys do. So you guys are in a great lane. Congratulations. I think you are well needed and very, very important in this day and age. If people were to try to get a hold of you, would it be TrustArc.com or what?
TrustArc.com will get you to us, and we look forward to the conversation.
Sounds good. Chris Babel, CEO of TrustArc, thank you very much for being on eSpeaks.
Thanks for the time, Chris. Appreciate it.
And for everybody following along to the bitter end here, thank you very much and have a great rest of your eWEEK. Thanks for joining us on eWEEK eSpeaks. Go to eWEEK.com to hear more conversations with IT thought leaders.